Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Dragon Ball Super Broly, which is the newest Dragon Ball movie and the first under the Dragon Ball Super banner. Now going into this movie, I was a little concerned. Although at first when I heard about a Dragon Ball Super movie, I was excited to see what direction the story was taking and what new concepts they would introduce. However, once it was revealed to be a movie about Broly, much of that excitement fell off a cliff. Because I'm sure as you guys know, I wasn't quite what you'd call a fan of the original Broly. That being said, the more I saw of the movie and heard how this was going to be a fresh take on the Broly character, the more interested I became. My concerns were still there, but I had a feeling that this could be good, rather than a pure fan service cash-in. And upon seeing the movie, most of my concerns were put to rest, because the Broly movie is awesome. Now that's a sentence I never expected to say, but just how awesome is this movie? Well, in this video, I'm going to discuss that. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. So the story of this movie revolves around Goku, Vegeta, Broly, and Frieza. The movie covers their time not only in the present, but also their shared history. As Frieza is once again returning for revenge upon Goku, he plans to use the Dragon Balls for his own nefarious purposes. In order to do this, he enlists the help of Broly, who is stranded on a desolate alien world with his father Paragus. Together, they come to the Earth to battle our protagonists in a be-all, end-all fight that will determine the fate of the universe. Now I first want to get into the thing that many people will be seeing this film for, which is the animation and fights. I knew this film would look good from the trailers and what I had heard from friends of mine who saw it at the premiere, but even then I wasn't really expecting what I ended up seeing. From the moment the movie starts, I could already tell that this was on another level from prior Dragon Ball movies and Dragon Ball Super. The art style and animation is incredible. Nagamine did a great job as director of this film, as did Shintani and the other animators. The new style they went with in this movie really goes well with not only the slower paced moments, but also the fights. And speaking of the fights, they're also incredible to watch. Broly vs Vegeta looks great, Broly vs Goku looks great, and the final fight is a mind-blowing, reality-bending battle unlike anything we've seen in Dragon Ball before, really showing off just how powerful these characters are. It also isn't your run-of-the-mill Dragon Ball action in one static location, as the characters fight in the sky, fly through glaciers, and the environment changes as the fights go on. Goku even gets to demonstrate a new technique along the way, which is something I've wanted to see for a while. This for me is very likely the best that Dragon Ball has ever looked, and if I was rating it only on its presentation, it would get nearly a 10 out of 10. The only thing I didn't care for with the animation is that there's a good amount of 3D CG used alongside the 2D animation. This is for ships, some environments, and even characters at points, such as during fights, which you've no doubt seen in the trailer. It's not always the best implemented, but it's still vastly better than what we saw in Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, which I rewatched before seeing this. In some ways, this story is similar to Resurrection F as well. However, it's done far better, and most of the issues I had with the film are fixed here. Now, as for the story, the first act of this film is taken up by the backstory of the characters involved. Most of this takes place on planet Vegeta years before its destruction. We see Frieza's introduction to the Saiyans by his father King Cold, and learn about Frieza's regime and how he ruled over the Saiyans, being presented as more sadistic than his father, which is very true. Some of the Saiyans don't like his rule and see themselves as slaves. You can tell that the film is trying to make many of the Saiyans more sympathetic here, such as Bardock and Guinea, who make appearances. Much of their storyline is taken straight from Dragon Ball Minus. It's a polarizing story to say the least, especially because it makes Goku's origins even more like Superman's. Not to mention it creates some continuity issues. However, there are some little tweaks here and there that make it work in this movie. How they incorporate Vegeta and Broly is really interesting too, such as when we find out about King Vegeta's plans for his son, Vegeta, who he wants to be the strongest Saiyan and rule over the universe instead of Frieza. However, this also ties in directly with Broly, because when the king learns about baby Broly and that he's showing signs of even greater potential, King Vegeta grows jealous and sends Broly to another desolate world. His father Paragus also becomes trapped there when trying to rescue Broly, which we saw in the trailer. This does a great job of explaining why the father and son hate Vegeta so much. They were trapped on this horrible, desolate world struggling to survive for decades. It's a lot like Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. So when they're given the opportunity to fight Vegeta, they jump at it. Again, they're made more sympathetic here. Although Paragus is presented as kind of a prick early on, Broly isn't really a villain in this movie. He's someone who just so happened to be born powerful and was punished for it. Then by the time of this film, he's now being controlled by his father. However, unlike in the original Broly, he isn't a brainless tank with a mind control headband. He's a kinder person who's ignorant of the world around him, kind of like Tarzan. He also wears a shock collar that stops him during intense bursts of anger. During the movie, Broly even makes some friends, like with Chi-Lai, and stands up for her against other Frieza Force members. So when he starts to actually fight Goku and Vegeta, you care about him and what his fate will be. This movie actually made me care about Broly. That's really saying something. As for Chi-Lai, she's pretty cool. She's kind of a spunky soldier who is similar to Bulma in a lot of ways, although her character seems largely there for sex appeal, which they show off quite often. But she's a kind character who actually cares for Broly and has real motivations. She's basically the Jane to his Tarzan. Now, Frieza is of course the master manipulator behind everything in this movie. He's back for revenge, but honestly, his motivations for fighting are pretty weak here. Of course, he hates Goku and he wants to continue doing evil, but his wish on the Dragon Balls is so inconsequential. It also mirrors a wish that Bulma wants to make for pretty much the same reason. The whole thing just feels like an excuse for everyone to fight. So I think this could have been done a little better. However, Frieza is still one of the best characters in the movie, and actually has some of the funniest moments in it. As for the rest of the cast, they're either not in the film, or have what essentially amounts to cameos. Piccolo is there, but only briefly. Gota and Trunks show up, but their role was also minor. Gohan isn't even there, which disappointed me. Beerus and Whis do next to nothing in the film, although Whis gets briefly involved in the action, which was cool. Now, being a film based on Broly, this movie also has a lot of callbacks. Broly's appearance, his relationship with his father, ability to grow stronger, and numerous visuals have been taken from the original movies. For fans of those, I'm sure you'll enjoy this a lot. Although for non-fans, they aren't done in a way that's too distracting. It's not like what they did with Kale in the Tournament of Power, for example. There are some weird issues with continuity in this film though, largely having to do with transformations. For some weird reason, Goku and Vegeta's hair and aura change into colors we've never really seen before when they're transitioning between forms. There's no explanation for it, and it seems to be an artistic choice. However, it's kind of distracting because it's never been shown to happen before. Additionally, there's some scenes in the film that feel weirdly edited, almost as if an establishing shot or another scene was cut out before it. For example, in the third act, one character just happens to be in a scene fighting with no real explanation. There's also some writing that doesn't really make the most sense under scrutiny, such as one fight in the third act lasting way longer than it should have, and of course Broly's rise in power. Broly increases in power so quickly over the course of 2 fights that it's crazy, and although there's some explanation given to how his power works, it's still a lot to suspend your disbelief over. Although you're so caught up in the action and presentation of the fights that it may not really hit you how big of a jump it is that you're seeing. I'm a guy who cares about logical scaling and continuity in this franchise, so that naturally stuck out to me. Although I suspect that people who don't care about those things won't have an issue here. Another thing I'm on the fence about is the score. There's some good tracks here that add to the emotion of scenes, however there's some music that I thought was kind of distracting. For example, during the climactic fight, there's an announcer yelling the characters' names and attacks as a part of the song. I guess I can see what they were going for, but I would have preferred normal music over something like that. Additionally, I thought the dub was fine here, however it would have been nice to have the option to see this in theaters in Japanese. But I guess I'll have to wait for the Blu-ray to see that. So overall, Dragon Ball Super Broly is an excellent addition to the Dragon Ball franchise with amazing animation, incredible fights, and a fleshed out version of Broly that I actually cared about. Now, is it the best Dragon Ball movie? I'll have to rewatch it and the others before making that judgment, but it's certainly a strong contender. Either way, this is a film that I'd highly recommend to fans of Dragon Ball, and one that I think will benefit the most from seeing in theaters on the silver screen. It's pretty weird recommending a Broly movie, but they actually made one that works here. I'm going to give Dragon Ball Super Broly an 8.5 out of 10. Although I could see this score changing upon rewatching it. So have you guys seen Dragon Ball Super Broly? If so, what did you think about it? What were your pros and cons, and where would you rank it among the other Dragon Ball movies? Let me know down below. Also, if you're new to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications so that you can see all of my videos right away when they come out. And make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, the new Broly's muscles are so gigantic and his gains are insane. I can't wait to pose alongside him in the blue Cheetah and show them how it's really done.